Hey everybody, welcome to the What is Money Show. I am thrilled to have you here joining me on my mission to help shine light on the corruption of money. Now, a little bit about this show and how it makes money. We are 100% sponsor based, which means that all the revenues we derive come from sponsorships. But I try to be very selective about the sponsors that I work with, specifically trying to choose those who have values well aligned to the values expressed on this show, like freedom, education, self-sovereignty, etc. So what I'm going to do is a few ad reads right here at the top of the show and then a few ad reads in the middle. And I hope you won't skip them. I hope you'll take the time, listen, and see what they have to offer, because again, these are hand-selected sponsors. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Swan Private. Swan Private is a concierge financial services firm based in Los Angeles. Now, I've known the Swan team for years, and these guys are laser focused on the Bitcoin mission. They even have a zero tolerance policy for all shitcoining. Recently, their CEO, Corey Clipston, was instrumental in calling out many of these crypto scams right before they collapsed, saving a lot of people a lot of money in the process. Swan Private focuses on guiding high net worth individuals and businesses on all aspects of Bitcoin strategy, including buying, custodying, and market research. This concierge service provides you direct access to a private advisor by text, phone, or email. So go to swanprivate.com/breedlove today to sign up. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Ledn. Ledn lets you do more with your digital assets. For instance, Ledn offers a B2X loan product that lets you leverage your existing Bitcoin to buy even more Bitcoin. Or you can also get traditional Bitcoin collateralized US dollar loans through Ledn as well. Ledn also offers both Bitcoin and USDC denominated savings accounts, letting you generate yield on your digital assets. Recently, Ledn has launched a Bitcoin mortgage product as well that lets you use Bitcoin to buy a home or finance one that you already own. So go to ledn.io, that's LEDN.io today to sign up. Peter Diamandis, welcome to the What is Money Show.
Hey, Robert, good to see you again. Last we saw each other, we were in Calamigos Ranch at the awarding of the Ayn Rand Award to Michael Saylor.
Yes. Yeah, it was an honor to meet you. I guess I followed you for a long time on Twitter. I don't know how long you followed me, but big fan of your work. So it's great. It was great to meet you and great to talk to you today as well. Just by way of quick introduction, you are the founder and chairman of the XPrize. You're also the founder of Singularity University, and you've authored several books. And as you were just telling me offline, you're currently on your, I think, 26th company that you said. So you're quite an active entrepreneur and prolific thinker and writer.
Yeah, it's my art form. I love creating and solving problems, as I'm sure many folks listening do.
Yes. Yeah, I think it is one of the most sacred disciplines.
Did I say I like creating problems or solving problems?
Message received. You like to create solutions to problems. Yeah. Maybe we just talk about that real quick. Like what are some of the books you have written, I guess, and what are you working on writing today? This is something I found it's very difficult to be consistent on writing. And I often find myself trying to pull a big cloud of things I want to say into something coherent. So if you have any secrets or tips, please share as well.
Yeah, sure. So, years back when the first XPrize for spaceflight was going on, there was a guy named Stephen Kotler wrote an article for GQ on me and the XPrize, and I was taken by his writing. It was like, wow, this guy really writes well. And so, because I usually don't notice when their writing style, but I noticed this guy's writing style, and I really liked it. And so I called him up and I said, I want to get lessons from you. So I hired him to give me writing lessons, which was fascinating. And I wanted to write a book on space, which was my my first 25 years of my life. My first 10 companies were on the space arena. And couldn't sell a book. And then I was at Singularity University, which I co-founded with Ray Kurzweil and was the chairman of. And the idea of abundance and that term abundance came to mind. And it was a realization that, there is nothing truly scarce. Things are just not in the usable form yet. They're there, just not usable form. Like we're bathed by 8,000 times more energy from the sun that hits the surface of the earth than we consume. It's there, it just can't use it all the time. But technology is making it more and more usable, right? Same thing with water. Talk about water wars, water scarcity. We live on a water planet, 2/3 covered by water. Problem is 97.5 is salt, 2% is ice, and we fight over 0.5%. So can we turn that water into a more usable form from atmospheric capture or desalination? Anyway, this idea of abundance and that technology could take what was scarce and make it abundant. In fact, it does it over and over again, was an idea that, like, boom, it captured my imagination. I called Stephen Kotler and said, this is the book we need to write together. And it was, number 2 on the New York Times list. I guess you say number 1 New York Times bestseller. You don't brag about being number 2, but it was good. And I gave the opening TED talk that year on the subject, and then I became enamored with the idea of writing, and I started enjoying writing. And my second book was a book called Bold: How to Go Big, Create Wealth, and Impact the World. And then a book called The Future is Faster Than You Think, and then just finished a book with Tony Robbins on health and longevity called Life Force. So, writing for me has to be passion driven. I have to really be in love with the subject, and it's consistency. So when I'm writing a book, I will wake up and write for an hour every day. And what Stephen Kotler taught me was, if you get one finished page a day, you're ahead of the curve. So it's like, write a page and edit a page. So edit what you wrote yesterday and write a new page today. And just that consistency is what works.
That is excellent. Yeah, writing is really easy to push to the back burner, especially if you're swamped with more time-sensitive task.
Yeah.
But that idea of adding consistency into your day, I think, really is the key.
And I do it first thing in the morning when my mind is clearest.
Are you an early riser?
I am now. I mean, when I was in medical school and graduate school, I would typically get cranking at midnight and go till 2 or 3 a.m. And today, I really focus on getting 8 hours of sleep, which means I'm in bed by 9:30, get up at 5:30.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, so that's an interesting take, actually, that nothing is scarce. It's just a matter of transforming.
Not usable.
Yeah, it's not usable. So there is potentiality, but we have to work to convert it into actuality, something useful.
And if you think about it, it's true for almost everything, right? It's one of my favorite examples in the abundance mindset is a friend of mine's company called the Diamond Foundry that manufactures lab-grown diamonds, right? And so we think about, what do you think of as more scarce as a perfect diamond, a 3, 4, 5, 6, 10-carat diamond? Well, the Diamond Foundry, Martin, who's a CEO there, has built capabilities that can effectively vapor deposition carbon and create a perfect diamond, 50-carat perfect diamond, right? So it's not scarce by any means.
So okay, because in economics, it's scarcity is defined as anywhere demand exceeds supply. And to your point, it's work and technology that allow us to increase supply, basically, of whatever the thing is that we want, whatever the thing is that we demand. And it seems like technology is the only amplifier of that, right? Technology is just amplifying work, amplifying our labor effectively. Yeah. So do we get to a point of zero scarcity in your mind? I mean, that would be, yes. I guess the equivalent question is free energy, right?
Yeah. So let me give you a couple of thoughts there. The only thing that is going to transform scarcity into abundance is technology. And if you think about the cost of anything, a house, a Lamborghini, a steak. The actual cost of it is the material cost and the energy cost and the information cost.
Mm-hmm.
So in the future, and there's a great book called Zero Marginal Society by Jeremy Rifkin that talks about this. There's the concept of nanotechnology. And nanotechnology is, and we're going to get there, we're going to be able to use these tiny atomic machines that are able to rearrange atoms. And so if I have an assembler with these robot assemblers in my hand and I create a copy of it and I give it to you and I tell my assembler, I want to make a electric Lamborghini, and I toss it in the dirt and I say, make me an electric Lamborghini, it organizes the atoms of what it needs. It might say, I need some titanium. It might say, I need some other metals or materials. And ultimately, it uses maybe an open source file of what electric Lamborghini is and the energy. So things come down to the cost of the information, the cost of the raw materials that then need to be assembled, and then the energy cost. And of course, there's intellectual property as well. I mean, you can just think about the fact that, your iPhone today is crazy extraordinary. There are like 57 different elements required to manufacture the iPhone, and for what you get compared to what it would have cost you to have this kind of capacity 20 years ago, is this march towards abundance.
Yeah. So that was my question, is what does abundance mean to you specifically? Is it more free time? So we're accomplishing more of the drudgery, I guess, with technology. So we free ourselves up to do more high level value additive task.
It's whatever you want at a lower and lower cost. If you want more free time, that's what it can give you. If you think about the fact that, 20 years ago, if you needed to know something, you would hop in your car and you would drive to the library and you would hope they had a book on the subject, and they may or may not. And they would tell you, go to this other library branch. And at the end of the day, you would have spent hours. Today, you just, Google it and you have it instantly in microseconds. So it saved time. It's, abundance is access to all the food, energy, water, healthcare, education, information that you need. And we're heading towards a massive digitization, dematerialization, demonetization, and democratization. So as we digitize everything, we're dematerializing it. So you don't carry a camera, a video camera, books, records, flashlights. It's all dematerialized into your phone. And when you dematerialize it, when it becomes ones and zeros, the cost of replication and transmission is near zero. So it's demonetized and it's available to everyone. So it's democratized. And when I'm, coaching CEOs and entrepreneurs and whomever, I'm saying your job is to digitize, dematerialize, demonetize, and democratize your products and services. Because if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it to you.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good encapsulation of just the potential abundance that digital technology affords us. Okay, you have been on the topic of writing, actually. You have a wonderful blog on your website.
Thank you.
You've been writing recently about meta trends.
Yeah.
I think you've enumerated 6 of them so far.
Yeah, I've created a list of 20 meta trends that are going to redefine the decade ahead. And this is as close as you get to predicting the future. These things are going to happen, and they're going to transform every industry. When they exactly happen and how they impact your company or industry will vary, but they're things that are definitively moving rapidly.
So these are technologies that are not at the speculative stage of ideation. They're sort of becoming commercialized, I guess, are on the cusp of becoming commercialized.
And they're not individual technologies, Robert. They're converging exponential technologies. And all of these are the result of AI and robotics and drones, or 3D printing and synthetic biology. It's 2, 3, 4 of these technologies coming together, and they're still somewhat out in the future, but it's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. You can see these things coming. You know, you can talk about autonomous cars and flying cars as an example of that, right? It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when does it get good enough, and when does it become economically viable, and when does the business model flip.
Got it. Okay, let's focus on that one that you brought up there, flying cars. I've thought about this somewhat, like how, if we all had presumably pretty fast flying cars, then kind of the model of the city gets called into question, right? We don't need as much I guess population density because the vehicle has changed. So what are some of the
So
second order consequences you think of flying cars?
So let me give it the proper name, which is eVTOLs, which sucks from a marketing standpoint. They're electric vertical takeoff or landing.
Okay.
That's an acronym. And there are a dozen to 24 such companies. 3 of them have gone public in the last 24 months at multi-billion-dollar valuations. And so again, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The technology is here. The AI to enable safe operations is getting better and stronger. The battery energy densities to allow these electric vehicles to fly for longer times is becoming better and better. So we're on the price performance improvement curves that are making their business case more viable. And you can think of these as not something we individually own, but these are taking off from different points to different points. So I live in Santa Monica, and if I want to go see a Dodger game with my kids, instead of battling the 10 freeway, I might go to a node that perhaps it's at Santa Monica Airport, and 7 minutes later, I'm landing at a node at Dodger Stadium. And so these are going to be point-to-point systems with landing and takeoff zones in different parts of cities. And yeah, it's going to redefine where you live and where you work, because, you know, most cities are defined because that's where the jobs are, and because that's where entertainment or education or culture or shopping is. So what we're going to see is the combination of new transportation modalities, you know, these eVTOL flying cars and autonomous cars, combined with, you know, what we're doing right now, Zoom, is going to allow you to live almost any place, and enjoy the benefits of, you know, you could live in Topanga, which geographically is, you know, 45 minutes away, and I wouldn't want to live there if it's raining or there's fires, whatever the case may be. But in a flying car, it's a 5-minute trip. But if the one freeway, you know, if the Pacific Coast Highway is blocked, you're screwed. It can be a 3-hour trip. So it's going to open up different geographies, smaller islands. But then, you know, we're redefining where we live and where we work by Zoom alone. I employ people in Eastern Europe, in Asia, who I've never, ever met, but they're incredible members of my team and add extraordinary value.
It's very interesting. So how fast would those cars be?
The flying cars?
Yeah.
Typically, depends. There are 2 modalities. One is where, think of it as a large drone, a multi-copter drone. Those will typically fly on the order of 100 miles per hour. The ones that have wings, where they take off vertically using the propellers, these direct electric propulsion props, and then when they get to altitude, they transition to forward flight using wings. And those can be 180, 200 miles an hour.
Wow. And the Hyperloop that Elon was talking about, I know, building some of these tunnels underneath cities as a means of rapid transportation. Do you think these things exist complementary to one another? Or do you think one or the other sort of becomes dominant?
So here's the reality. For for a new system to come into place and really become a viable business, it's got to be 10 times better than what existed before. Right. And if it's not 10 times better, the switching cost and the capital investment costs aren't going to happen. So electric autonomous cars, I think, meet that need, and we're going to see those. These eVTOLs, which have many markets, and besides humans, it's local package delivery type of stuff. One of my friends, Martine Rothblatt, who is incredible entrepreneur, has built a company that produces replacement human lungs, and she wants to use the eVTOLs from a company called Beta, based in New Hampshire, to deliver the lungs from her manufacturing site to the tops of hospitals where are needed. So where you need, to transport, we're going to see, air ambulances and military and police and so forth using these kinds of vehicles as well. And I forgot the original question you were asking.
I was just asking if you thought Hyperloop would live
Hyperloop.
in symbiosis with flying cars or not.
Yeah, so I think in theory, once it becomes capable and demonstrated, yes. I mean, Hyperloop is great for medium distance, like LA to San Francisco, New York to Boston, something that's a 4 or 5 hour drive, and becomes a 30-minute Hyperloop city center to city center. In an airplane, you're like an eVTOL doesn't really do those ranges. It's more shorter haul, more like the Santa Monica to Dodger Stadium or Topanga or that sort of thing. And you could fly from LA to San Francisco, but by the time you get to LAX, an hour before, and then an hour transport, you've spent 3.5 hours. Well, if Hyperloop can do you in 30 minutes, city center, that's a sufficiently differentiation that would make it viable.
Got it. So we'd get more Hyperloop city to city, but then more flying vehicles within the city.
And so it's going to be, eventually we get this. And I think, autonomous cars are going to hit us first, or not hit us first. They're going to be arriving first. And then these flying cars, the eVTOLs next. Hyperloop is still a ways off. The one venture that was attempted didn't get fully capitalized. Elon may make it happen, but you're going to see tier. You're going to have, if you've got a meeting someplace, you're having breakfast, you get up from the breakfast table, your AI knows your calendar. It sees you getting up. It sees you walking towards the front door, and it has ordered an autonomous car, and it's waiting for you. Right. And so life becomes automagical. You get into the autonomous car, it drives you to the local eVTOL node, and you hop in there. It's waiting for you, and it knows where you want to go, and it flies you there. So there'll be a sort of a graceful transition between modalities here.
That's super fascinating. Okay, one other meta trend I'd like to touch on. This might be touching on a few of them, actually. One of your blog posts was titled Jarvis, a software interface to improve our lives. And I just watched, I don't know if you ever watched the show Black Mirror, but I watched the episode White Christmas recently, which is my favorite episode. And it details basically a customer going into a medical procedure to have their consciousness extracted.
Yes.
And then that consciousness becomes their personal servant, their personal Jarvis, if you will. And the Jarvis is in reference to the AI on the Avengers movie, I take it.
Yeah, it's Iron Man's AI, right? It's in his
Yes.
suit, it's in his home, and it's the sort of the British butler who can image anything and answer any questions and help manufacture stuff. And I want one desperately. Yes.
Yeah. So
listen,
that seems like it'll unlock tremendous amounts of productivity. But same question about the flying cars for the Jarvis. What are the second order effects of a breakthrough like that in your mind?
So, first of all, Black Mirror and a lot of movies like that, most science fiction movies get very dystopian very fast. And the fact of the matter is, I think these supportive AIs in our life, we have Siri now, we have Alexa now, we have Google HomePods and so forth, and they are pretty extraordinary compared to what we had in the past, right? You can talk to them and get answers, and they can provide reminders and so forth. But imagine where it's going to evolve to. I think of everyone having a personal software AI shell, like, it's software that is with you all the time, right? Maybe it's part of your phone, maybe it's on your belt buckle, but it's listening. You give it permission to listen to all your conversations. You give it permission to read your emails. You give it permission to watch what you're eating, and it becomes massively enabling. What do I mean by that? As it's listening to your conversations, and you say, "Hey, Robert, let's get together for lunch next week," it has scheduled lunch and picked a restaurant based upon your preferences and mine, and it's automagical in that regard. If you want to lose weight, it is watching what you eat, making recommendations, and you can say, okay, you could be bitchin' Betty, and it's like, stop eating chocolate, and just like, it becomes your supporter. It's medically listening or watching all of your physiological sensors, right? What's the stuff you're wearing, like my Oura Ring, my Apple Watch, embedded sensors, and it's saying, oh, listen, we're detecting something that is not normal. You need to go to see your doctor. It becomes your at-home physician. So, we are without question going to get there. It will become, imagine your very best executive assistant ever, who's living with you and watching you and supporting before you even know you want it, right? You walk into a room and it's preset the temperature for you. It's got music going that you like. It knows you had a bad day, at the office, and when you come home, playing on TV is your favorite comedian, so I mean, it's that kind of what I call automagical life that's going to be viable. None of the stuff is on its own unimaginable, but it's and in fact, it's all here, just not all integrated yet.
Well, that reminds me of that old quote, may have been Ray's quote, actually, the future's here, just not evenly
William
distributed.
Gibson.
William Gibson, yeah. And it's a good point, too, that these technologies often are not singular breakthroughs, but they're more like amalgamations of other technologies that really drive the breakthrough. Okay, again, meta trends on the blog. Check that out. There's a lot more there we could talk about. But I want to ask you, do a slight pivot here and ask you about something else. So you had this, I guess you posted a Twitter thread about this recently, how shifting the education system to fit the gaming system could help promote abundance. And as I shared with you offline earlier, it seems like the world is kind of becoming a video game in many ways. But many more of our interactions and our day-to-day activities are mediated by screens and technology. We're kind of natural cyborgs in that way. We're constantly immersed in technology. What did you mean specifically? I guess, could you just unpack that thread for us? What is it about gaming and education that you think can unlock abundance?
So I have two 11-year-old boys, fraternal twins, right? And they are on their computers on Roblox all the time, and they love it, and they're growing up in that regard. And when I think about the education system today, I don't think education system is preparing them for the future they're going to be living in, a future where we've got ubiquitous AI, and you can imagine something and describe it, and Stable Diffusion can create the beautiful images or actually create a movie for you based upon what you speak. The world's going to get pretty weird pretty quick, and I don't think we're getting our kids ready for the technology coming. And the education system today is still traditional in all the ways, right? We have a summer break. Why? Because 100 years ago, we needed the kids to help us with the harvest in July and August. When you start in 7th grade algebra, when you begin with a perfect score, and every time you get something wrong, your score goes down. right? In the gaming world, you start with 0, and every time you get something right, your score goes up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's a very different set of incentives. I mean, today we've got, the sage on the stage, the teacher, always underpaid and always working hard, and one of the most important parts of society today. But in that situation, the half the classroom is bored and half the classroom is lost. You can't teach all the students equally all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be heading into a world where AI is the teacher, right? So this year, I run a summit every year called Abundance 360. It's I have 360 entrepreneurs and CEOs who I coach, and we talk about abundance mindset, exponential mindset, longevity mindset, moonshot mindsets. And this year, one of my speakers is Sal Khan, the creator of the Khan Academy. And we're talking about the future of education. And the future of education is definitively AI driven, right? It is going to be where you as a student walk into a virtual world in the metaverse driven by an AI, and whatever you want to know is accessible to you, but it's experiential. Like if I want to learn about Plato, instead of reading a book that I can barely get through, I'm going to walk into ancient Greece, look around. I'll see a guy on a marble block over there in a white toga, and he comes over and says, "Hey, I'm Plato. Let me tell you what I'm up to. Come to my university," whatever the case might be. And you walk around and you have a conversation. You meet his friends, and Pythagoras is there drawing on the ground, and you remember it in a way like never before, right? This is what I'm speaking of.
That is super fascinating, and I think would obviously drive a lot more engagement between kids and the education system, which is somewhat sorely lacking today. And I guess it's a bit of a shift from stick to carrot as an incentive model rather than penalizing wrong answers. You're rewarding good answers. And
yeah, it's stick to carrot, and it's also helping students learn in an immersive way that's more fun. Right? And students learn differently. Some students are visual, some are auditory, some are experiential. But you can think about it yourself. If the numbers are pretty staggering, when you read something compared to when you experience something, the retention for experiencing is 5x greater. Right? I mean, these Metatrend blogs that I put out, and I think we're at blog 7 right now out of 20. Folks can access them. I spend a lot of time thinking about them and really trying to make them both understandable and understand the implications of them, because I think they're exciting. They're not fiction. They're happening. But if someone goes to diamandis.com/blog, you can get I put out 2 blogs a week currently in the Metatrends, typically also about exponential tech or longevity. And it's what I'm passionate about. I want to get people excited about the future, not fearful of it.
Yeah.
Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, CrowdHealth. CrowdHealth is a Bitcoin-enabled alternative to legacy health insurance. Now let's face it, legacy health insurance is an absolute scam. Nobody can explain this better than the legendary comedian Chris Rock.
Insurance. You got to have some insurance. You got to. There's an insurance. They shouldn't even call it insurance. They should just call it in case shit. Like, I give a company some money in case shit happens. Now, if shit don't happen, shouldn't I get my money back?
So with CrowdHealth, instead of just paying premiums that you'll never see again, you can hold part of this pool of savings in dollars and in Bitcoin through CrowdHealth. And when you have a health event, you can draw against this pool of communal savings. So go to joincrowdhealth.com/breedlove to learn more or sign up. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Wasabi Wallet. Wasabi lets you use Bitcoin privately while still maintaining full control over your money. Specifically, Wasabi Wallet is an open source, non-custodial wallet with privacy built in by default. By using Wasabi, you're effectively putting the private back in private property. Wasabi Wallet is an easy-to-use privacy wallet that can support any amount of Bitcoin transactions. So go to wasabiwallet.io today to download this state-of-the-art wallet software. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Masterworks. Masterworks gives you access to the fine art market at more affordable price points. They do this by offering you fractional shares in their $500 million portfolio of fine art. Now, fine art is an alternative asset class, and historically, it's been a great performer and a really good hedge against inflation. Most investors typically hold anywhere from 2 to 10% of their assets in an asset like fine art. To sign up or learn more, go to masterworks.com and use promo code BREEDLOVE. Now, I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes it simple to buy and secure your Bitcoin without wondering whether you're doing it right. Specifically, Casa provides a multi-key custody solution, which is by far the most secure way to custody your Bitcoin. Now, when I talk about Bitcoin being theft-proof money or inviolable private property, a multi-key custody model is exactly what I am talking about. Using multiple keys lets you maintain full control of your Bitcoin while also giving you redundancy in case you lose one of the keys. It's also the best way to secure your Bitcoin for inheritance planning purposes. So go to keys.casa, that's C-A-S-A, today to sign up and use discount code BREEDLOVE.
The other component, which you alluded to earlier, you're moving from a one-size-fits-all educational environment where you said half the kids are lost, half the kids are bored, to an individualized experience, right? You actually move at your own pace, you're through your own pathways, your own interests and whatnot. Would you imagine that jobs would sort of shift into that domain as well, right? As much as they can.
Yeah, I'll give you a great example of what I'm thinking there, which is I want you to imagine you just lost your job and you're trying to figure out what you want to do next, and you don't feel like you're trained for anything. But imagine there is a place that you go when you play video games. And the video game is effectively a job training game. And as you play the game, you say, I don't like this one. And you go to the next one, and you go to the next one. And you find one, this is interesting. I like being a cook. This is a fun game to do. And you get points. The more you learn, the higher you get in the ranking. And then the system says anybody in the top 100 automatically gets a job. And so what does it mean that I got in the top 100? I've had to have learned everything to get there, and I've had to have stuck with it, which means I have to have enjoyed it. And if I'm looking to hire people as a pastry chef and there's a pastry chef job there, then, that's a great way. But I think there's a lot of this that can happen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, can we talk about the XPrize, something that's made you quite famous, I think. Maybe just starting from the ground up, what is the XPrize? What's the genesis story behind it? Where are you guys at with it today?
Sure. So the XPrize it's a nonprofit organization. We're headquartered in LA. We have an amazing team. And we identify problems in the world that haven't been solved yet. And we create a competition and say, I don't care where you went to school, what you've ever done, if you solve this problem, not on paper, but actually physically build the thing to solve the problem, you win the cash. So the origin story is that back in 1993, hard to believe, I read a book called The Spirit of St. Louis and learned that Charles Lindbergh in 1927 crossed the Atlantic, not on a whim, but to win a $25,000 prize. And that prize inspired 9 teams to spend $400,000 trying to win his prize. And this prize was for the first person to fly between New York and Paris. So Lindbergh wins it. become the most famous human on the planet. I go, okay, that's amazing. This guy didn't pay any of the losers, only paid the winner, got the teams cumulatively to spend 16 times the prize money to go after his prize, and you pay only on success. I'm going, holy shit, what's not to like about this deal? So my passion had been, still is, opening up space. So I gave up on the government space program as the means I was going to get there. So I wanted to create commercial space for me and my friends. And I announced a $10 million prize for the first team who could build a private spaceship to carry 3 of us up into space, come back down, land, and do it again within 2 weeks. And it was won in 2004 by a guy named Burt Rutan, funded by Paul Allen. Richard Branson came and bought the rights from that winning technology to create Virgin Galactic. And we really laid the framework for the regulations, the financial interest, the entrepreneurial interest for the commercial spaceflight industry. And we've launched $300 million of prizes since then.
Wow.
And it's, we've got another 300 or 400 million in development today.
Wow. Amazing. How do you determine the problem sets that you try and have addressed?
In the past, Robert, it was me having, lunch with Sergey Brin at Google and saying, let's do a Lunar XPrize, or with Paul Jacobs at Qualcomm, and let's do a tricorder XPrize. It was sort of like, what does the philanthropist who's got the money find that is meaningful and exciting? And what do I think would make a good prize? Right? That combination was critically important. And that has transitioned to really pulling together the world's experts in what we call our brain trust, and debating and discussing which problems are not moving forward, which are stuck, right? Which need to be, what needs a big jolt and a big push. And then we create a series of X prizes or designs around those areas. And then we're working on a platform to ask the world which they want solved first, and then to bring in sponsors there. So it's really meant to be an engine for, identifying and focusing the world's cognitive surplus on the world's biggest problems.
Wow, it's super interesting. In that prize model, which I guess you didn't actually originate it, but you've taken.
No, it's been around. I mean, prize models. The first major prize that people have maybe heard about is the Longitude Prize. For being able to determine longitude, right? It was built by a clockmaker,
right?
And then at the turn of the 1900s, there were dozens of aviation prizes, but they sort of died during World War II. World War II, a lot of the previous incentive for technology progress was from prizes, but when World War II came along, it was like the government was pumping money in. If they needed something, they wouldn't launch a prize and wait for it to happen. They would just fund the damn thing. And so I revived it for commercial spaceflight.
It's fascinating to me how much of a force multiplier money is inside of that model, where you're describing that you're only paying the winner, and then all these other groups expend a multiple of that amount trying to do the innovation.
Yeah, the average is 20 and as high as 40-fold all the teams cumulatively spending to win that prize.
Wow.
They're all optimists. They all think they can do it. And, the goal is to launch an industry on the back end of that, where not just the winner, but a number of them can go on and build businesses. If we have an X prize that's won and it becomes a museum piece, then we've failed. Unless it's launching an industry and changing the problem, then it's not successful for us.
Have you ever been inspired for, I guess, offering a prize to solve a problem by an actual applicant, like maybe a problem space you didn't see, and then someone said, "Hey, I can solve this"?
We have people throwing ideas at us all the time, and you can go to xprize.org and see what we're up to today. And we have a summit every year called Visioneering. We bring together top scientists, engineers, philanthropists, and debate and discuss, and people pitch their ideas from the stage. And it's a very positive mindset of any problem can be solved type of mindset.
It's fascinating. I did an episode recently. It was titled Bitcoin Mining on the Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of guys were pitching me on this idea of, we have this inexhaustible energy source, effectively inexhaustible energy source in the sky called the sun.
Yep.
And we have this inexhaustible energy buyer called Bitcoin. And so I forget the name of the technology. I think they call it OTEC technology, but it seemed like a good fit for XPrize. So I was just curious about how that whole process shakes out.
So, I mean, what we try and do is there's got to be a clearly defined endpoint,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like build a spaceship, carry 3 adults, 100 kilometers, land, do it again within 2 weeks. And it has to be something in our minds that isn't going to happen or isn't going to happen in the close enough term. So I'll give you an example. One prize we're getting ready to launch in the first half of 2023 is a fire detection and extinction prize, right? Being in LA here, I'm sick and tired of all the fires occurring, causing billions of dollars of damage, killing hundreds of individuals, and not changing. We've been fighting wildfires the same way for 50 years, and they're getting worse. It's like ridiculous. So we're launching a prize to re-engineer how we fight fires. And the prize here is detect a fire at ignition when it begins and put it out within 10 minutes. Right? It's like, when do you want to find cancer? Well, when it's a few cells, not when it's a stage 4.
Yes. Wow. And so that detection would be over a vast geographical area, I assume.
The rules right now are 1,000 square acres.
Yeah.
So, and again, there's a business on the back end of that. Like we met at Calamigos Ranch. A friend of mine, Garrett Gerson, owns it. It's a beautiful property. They can't get fire insurance.
Right.
So if the winner of this provides them fire protection services, then they can get insurance on top of that.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. You shifting gears a little bit here. Well, let's talk about this episode you did. And you have a great podcast called Moonshots and Mindsets.
Thank you.
Recently had a guest on, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Salim Ismail. And
yes,
you guys...
Salim was the first executive director of Singularity University, and he runs an organization called Open EXO, Exponential Organizations. Yeah.
Very interesting. You guys talked about a lot of fascinating topics. One of them was AI governed nation states. Yeah. And he had this quote, I think of the Constitution as the software that runs the country. You have to upgrade your software. Times and values change. The challenge that we have with democracy is that the metabolism of decision-making and change in a democracy is too slow for the change of tech. And it's an interesting angle, actually. I've taken issue with constitutional documents for that very reason, and that, we write these principles down on paper, we organize ourselves around them, but then very quickly that technology changes and situations change, and we have a hard time sort of amending the original document. And when we do amend the original document, sometimes it's to the detriment of society. So do you think we get to a world of society that's maybe built on top of software rather than these, what is the Constitution? A scroll today, I guess, written in feather ink?
Yeah. So a couple of points here. One, we don't live in an actual democracy. We live in a representative democracy because back in 1776, there was no way, people weren't sufficiently educated, and you couldn't communicate, and you couldn't run a national election in anything under, like 6 months of Pony Express. And so we needed to elect people who were learned and represented us. But today, of course, we could ask Google to run a perfect democracy, and have one person, one vote instantly. My favorite solution is like, I don't know enough about Bitcoin issues, so I'm going to assign my vote on any Bitcoin issues to Robert, right? And I'm going to assign my vote on any female-related issues to Esther, right? In other words, you can assign your vote to people whose opinion you trust and so forth, and then people assign their vote on space to me. And every time a space issue comes up, I represent 300 people who want me to think about that, and I can vote intelligently on that issue, which I'm knowledgeable about. So there is ways to reinvent democracy and have humans still in the loop and have them relevantly in the loop in that regard. You know, the challenge also is it's kind of hard to start a country these days. You know, you either have to go and take over one, which is challenging, or you have to revolt and overthrow a government, kind of challenging. You can try and seastead and build a new island in the open ocean, kind of challenging. The other options, which will happen, is there will be virtual countries. And, you know, where I'm a citizen in a virtual world and a US citizen both. And the virtual world adopts a set of laws and guidelines and so forth. And when I'm playing my character in that virtual world, I have to abide by those things. And then, of course, there's going to be the new nation states we start in space on various planets and so forth. Now, the point about AI, so, you know, we've seen the experiments on capitalism, communism, and socialism. And the problem with communism and socialism was the idea that the government could know what's best for the people. And of course, we saw in Russia, you know, it never worked. The state-owned industries didn't do a good job, and only in a perfect capitalist market where you have supply and demand match up, it works amazingly well. But what happens if you have an AI that's able to actually do the matchup of supply and demand a lot more effectively and efficiently, right? And to minimize costs or to maximize happiness, whatever the case might be. So countries that are I don't want to, how I want to say this, dictatorships or, you know, basically AI friendly, like China, can begin to utilize AI to do a lot more effective governing in some ways. Now, human rights issues abound, you know, I won't go into that. But the other thing is we're heading towards a period of what I call technological socialism. So I'm a capitalist libertarian, if I have to label myself, right? I'm libertarian in nature, and capitalism is my my art form. I love starting companies. But technological socialism is when it's not the state taking care of you, but it's technology, right? Your AI is educating your kids. It is your physician. Your robots are cleaning up and serving you food. You know, your autonomous electric vehicles are flying you or driving you places. And this is where we're ultimately going, where the cost of doing almost anything technologically is just cheaper and more efficient from a time standpoint. And, you know, the poorest people on the planet are being driven around in electric autonomous cars because they're cheaper than a bus. They're being chauffeured around, right?
Wow. Interesting world to think about. Yeah, it really makes you wonder, because in many ways, digital technology is sort of an enhancement for the free market, right? We can have global price discovery now and real-time markets and things like this. But the other side of that is, I guess, the technological state angle or socialism angle, where there's more censorship, more control, more visibility, things like that. So that will be interesting to watch play out. Okay, I want to ask you one last thing. So,
Please.
And I think you are referring to the quote Steve Jobs made here. And this was I think this might be on the intro video on your Twitter page, where you conclude with making a dent in the universe.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know the exact quote, maybe you do, but I do reflect on it a lot. Like when I get out of bed in the morning, what am I doing today? What is the dent I'm trying to make? So what I would like to ask you, Peter, what is the dent in the universe that you intend on making?
So the terminology I use in my Abundance 360 community and in my blogs is having a massive transformative purpose, right? What is your purpose on this planet? What is it that wakes you up in the morning and keeps you going through the day? What do you want to deliver as the most impactful thing you can do for this planet? How do you leave the planet better? And so I've had different phases of my life where I've had different MTPs. My earliest one was opening up the space frontier commercially for humanity, right? And that was my company Zero G that flies parabolic flights and flew Stephen Hawking, another company called Space Adventures that's taken people up on the Russian Soyuz to the space station privately, the XPrize Foundation, and a multitude of international space universities. So that was really my space focus. My next dent in the universe was, how do I incentivize people to solve the world's biggest problems? This was the XPrize. This was Singularity University. This was a realization like, hey, everybody, look, the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. Stop building another photo sharing app. Go and solve these bigger problems. You can make a dent in these areas and uplift humanity, and the world becomes better, and you can become wealthy and impact the planet at scale. And so it's trying to get people excited about solving the ground challenges and letting them understand that they now have the tools to do this that nation states or large corporations didn't have 20 or 30 years ago, right? It's like an individual today with access to everything on the cloud and all of, AI as a service type capabilities and 3D printing and all, you can do things that governments couldn't do. And so what do you want to do? What do you want to focus it? So for me, it was like getting people to think at that scale. Where I'm focused right now is two areas. One is I had a realization, Robert, that if you ask the question of, for the greatest leaders on the planet, whoever you are, Mahatma Gandhi, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, whatever you think of the greatest leaders, and you ask yourself the question, what was more important to those people? Was it their money, their network, their technology, or their mindset? I would posit that their mindset is the most important thing they had. If you took away everything else but kept their mindset, they would regain to some degree their success. Maybe the same, maybe more, maybe less, whatever. But your mindset is everything. And if that's the truth, if that is the case, and this is what I teach at Abundance 360, is then what mindset do you have? Where did you get it? What mindset do you want? So that's, my podcast, Moonshots and Mindsets, talks about that. One of my next books is of that same name. And my mission is to get people to realize that our brains are neural nets, right? Your brain is a neural net. It physically is. I mean, we've modeled the neural nets that are driving Google and, stability AI and stable diffusion and all these on the types of learning our brain does with layered connections of neurons. And so we train neural nets by showing them example after example after example after example. Like, if you want to train a neural net to see cats, you just show it 1,000 cats and it will figure out what a cat looks like. So what are we training our brains for? Those who are watching CNN, which I call the Crisis News Network, are training your brains for a very dystopian world. You're seeing a murder every 5 minutes in your living room over and over again. Is that really what you want? And so the dent I'm looking to make are twofold. One is helping people realize the importance of their mindsets and giving them the tools to create the key mindsets that I believe are important: a purpose-driven mindset, an abundance mindset, seeing the world, seeing the ability to take scarcity into abundance over and over again. And that's the mission of an entrepreneur, to create abundance. an exponential mindset to understand where these converging exponential technologies are going and how do you utilize them to implement your purpose-driven mindset. A moonshot mindset, which is going 10 times bigger in a business where everyone else is trying it for 10%. And then a longevity mindset, that we are entering a period of time where we're going to begin to extend the healthy human lifespan. And so the second dent in the universe I'm very focused on and enamored with right now is longevity, is health span extension. So my last 4 companies are all in this space. A company called Fountain Life, that is the top diagnostic and therapeutic company. Vaccinity, Singularity. I just wrote a book with Tony Robbins called Life Force on the subject. So I think we have the ability to extend the healthy human lifespan by decades. I want to make 100 years old and you 60, where you've got the aesthetics, the cognition, the mobility, and you feel great. So those are the dents I'm focused on.
Well, I will be rooting for you on making those dents. Peter, this has been a very enjoyable conversation. It was great meeting you in LA, and I'm sure I'll see you at an event again soon. Could you please let my audience know where I can find out more about you or your work?
Sure. If you go to diamandis.com/blog, you can sign up for my blog. I put out 2 a week. Right now I'm on Metatrends. My next sequence of blogs will be on extending the healthy lifespan and longevity practices. So diamandis.com/blog. And then Moonshots and Mindsets is the podcast. On Twitter, I'm at Peter Diamandis. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It is Diamandis for the audio listeners, in case you don't know. Peter, thank you again.
Pleasure, Robert. Be well.